Today I'm going to talk to you about the basics of the Reformed faith, condenses what is usually known as the 5 Points of Calvinism. Everything started with a movement called the Remonstrants, which, following the proposals and points of Jacobus Arminius, challenged the Reformed understanding of the doctrine of election. In 1618, the Synod of Dort met to discuss the proposals of Arminianism and produced a document called the Canons of Dort, rejecting the errors contained in the proposal and correcting them with 5 points exposing the doctrine of grace. These 5 points were not written to expose the whole spectrum of the Reformed faith, but just to respond to the errors of Arminianism, which included the following ideas. Foreseeing faith. God's election would be based upon the future man's behavior and faith. In other words, God would choose you to be saved based on your future works of faith. Universal atonement, assuming that Christ died for the whole humanity and man in his free will would decide to believe or not. Resistible grace, which means that man can reject grace in a permanent way and fall from grace, meaning that grace can be lost. As a response, the Synod answer covered the following points. Unconditional election, so the sovereignty of God is the only basis for God to choose his people. Definite or limited atonement, saying that Christ did not die for the whole world, but for the elect only. Radical or total depravity, saying that we are affected by sin in our whole person, but we are not as bad as we could be. We are not utterly depraved. Effectual or irresistible grace, so we cannot resist grace forever, and perseverance of the saints, meaning that the elect will reach salvation by grace at the end. Traditionally, these 5 points are called by the acrostic TULIP as follows: total depravity, unconditional election, limited atonement, irresistible grace, and perseverance of the saints. In this series, we will go through each of these points one by one to understand what the Reformed faith has to say about the sovereignty of God and our chances to enjoy Him forever and worship Him face to face for the whole eternity. In the next episode, we're going to talk about the point number 1, total depravity. Thank you and God bless.